So let us start out. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Theiss, the Future of series. My name is Andrea Gritsch, and I have the pleasure of moderating today's event. Throughout the Future of series, we are looking at a wide variety of disruptive technologies and innovation in different industry sectors. Together with leading experts in the areas of business, law, and technology, we explore current developments and future trends, shaping the markets of tomorrow and influencing modern society. The future of real estate and infrastructure is on today's agenda, hosted by my real estate partner, Karl.
Thank you, Andrea. Well, we are really excited to have you all here because today we are joined by experts from various backgrounds in law and industry to discuss fascinating and important developments in real estate and infrastructure. These topics are already reshaping the market and will continue to have lasting impact in the future. Today's presentations will reflect the effects of social, economic, and technological changes of many areas of law and business, not just real estate and infrastructure. These drivers particularly include, firstly, an increased focus on environmental sustainability across industries and value chains. Secondly, shifts in our living and working arrangements, such as the ability to seamlessly connect with one another from anywhere, and also challenges to traditional models of mobility and work. And thirdly, digital solutions that will boost our productivity and create new avenues to generate value and drive profits.
Exactly. And today you will hear from legal experts and business leaders about sustainable data centers, apps to simplify property management, and the future of certain property classes, including offices themselves. What is remarkable, though, is how these topics are situated in deeper social and economic developments that we experience daily in our professional and private lives. The challenge, of course, is not only to understand these developments, but to be able to implement strategies in our businesses early enough to remain competitive and, more importantly, to thrive, utilizing these shifts as a catalyst for growth instead of perceiving them as a threat. I hope you enjoy learning more about these exciting and important topics that will shape the future of real estate and infrastructure, and I encourage you to share your thoughts and questions with the presenters. Just before we dive into today's sessions, a brief housekeeping point. Each speaker is asked to limit his or her speech to 5 minutes. We will display a virtual timeline counting backwards and indicating when the time is up. Second, I would kindly ask all participants to hold their questions until our Q&A session at the end of the webinar. You are, of course, invited to submit your questions via our chat function at any time. And last but not least, as always, stay muted when not speaking. Our first speaker of today is our own Erik Steger, my partner from Real Estate Department at Theiss. Erik, you are addressing the question, shouldn't quality of life be ageless? Senior living as a new asset class or a trend? Erik specializes in real estate matters across the Central and Eastern European region. Clients seek his advice in development, project finance, acquisitions, and restructuring matters. His practice focuses on the hotel and leisure industry and the investment and divestment of commercial property with cross-border elements and opportunities for joint ventures. Erik is not only an excellent lawyer, but also a member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. Erik, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Andrea, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining in today. Did you ever ask your parents where they would wish to live in the last episode of their lives? Did they, probably just as mine did, respond that they wanted to stay at home for as long as reasonably possible and then stick to this, maybe even when that becomes quite unreasonable? I'm wondering, why is that? Are the places to go to when you're older maybe not even handicapped in any way? Are these places all ugly? Well, let's be honest, most of them are, and this is what makes me ask, shouldn't the quality of our life be ageless? Now, assets specializing on the elderly and nursing and care homes were a vastly neglected asset class by the real estate industry. Now it attracts more and more interest, and I invite you to take a deeper look into the market with me. We all remember the demographic pyramid we learned in school. Well, now that has been turned upside down, and in the next 30 years, it. So let me highlight a few details for you, even though I will only give you Austrian numbers, even though I'm pretty sure that they're not that much different from your country, from wherever you may be watching now. Today, 20% of our population are older than 65 and only 5% are more than 80 years old. Already in one decade, when we will be 3% more Austrians, there will be 25% more people that are 65 and elder and 27% more than 80. In the next 3 decades, so by 2050, our population will have grown only 8%. But, you know, as the BBC just published yesterday in a study, most of us could become as old as 130 years. 130. So coming back to Austria, in 2050, so 8% more Austrians, but half more people that have reached 65, and more than double will have celebrated their 80th birthday then. A third of our population will be rentiers. So for each pensioner today, we have 3 people working. Then there will be only 2 left working for each pensioner, which means there is a huge demand for elderly people. And how do we live today? How will we live by them is one of the biggest questions the real estate industry started to ask. Now, when you turn 40, the likelihood that you live alone increases more and more. And once you're 70 years old, the single households are the majority, even more so when you're female. Yet most of us, and again, looking at my parents is not that different, live in apartments or houses that far exceed the needs. So why is it that people stay there? What they are afraid of is that they don't find a living that meets the requirements that they may have at this age. Now, I will not talk about the care beds and specialized nurses, because there we know that the drama is coming already much earlier, and politicians in all these countries know that the age pyramid alone makes sure that while 4 family members can take care of 1 person that is in need today, already in 2040, so that's 20 years from now, that will, by generational needs, drop to 2 on 1. So only 2 family members will be there for us when we are in 2040 and we need care. Now, politicians know about the demographics too, and they know that this is people who will eventually vote for them. And therefore we have many, many hurdles in what you have to comply with, what you need to do, and how you could do that. And it differs in all our 9 countries, how to set up a building that is suitable for elderly and how you can do that freely. Now, the numbers are incredible. You want to, the study that was made by the University in Vienna in 2019 said that people would not necessarily want to stay at home, but they want to live in their own flat, self-reliant, but get support and more support as they need. Now, service apartments is something that we have come to be used to in vacation more and more, and it's going to grow also in the industry of the elder. It's great for you if you know such a place. It's reassuring for your family because they know you're being looked after, and best of all, make sure that this creates more time for fun. So these developments show a certain minimum requirement for safety on the one side and convenience on the other. Think about people who cannot run a flight of stairs or 2, who don't want to carry home many bottles of beer or soda, who suffer from deteriorating eyesight, but most of all, make sure that your daily life stays joyful. Now, what we see in the real estate industry is an increasing number of professional operators of senior living apartments, somewhat similar to the hotel industry, where it's a theme for bikers, a theme for skiers. There is a theme for the elderly who will then be, taken care of those professional operators who lease or manage a property that a different investor owns. Now, the investor will be taking more or less of the revenue risk, and there is very little revenue risk because in Austria, the places we have, they have between full and overcrowded occupancy rates all the time. In the study I mentioned before, it was demonstrated that we will need approximately 87,000 apartments in Austria that are suitable for the elderly by the end of this decade, by 2030. An average cost of such an apartment is 170,000 approximately. So we will need to invest 14.5 billion in this segment alone in Austria. Now, tell me, is senior living a short-lived trend, or would you agree that it actually becomes a new asset class for very specialized developers and investors? I leave this with you to decide for your own, and I'm happy to take your questions, hoping that I stuck to my 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Erik. This was really a great sneak peek into what is to come in the near future. Now moving to our second speaker, Denis Petrovčič, co-founder and CEO of Block Square. Denis, you will be asking the question whether real estate tokenization might bring investments back to local communities. Denis is a forward-thinking entrepreneur with a passion for the unknown. In 2018, he co-founded Block Square, a company leveraging blockchain technology with the vision to power platforms across the globe, connecting investors to real estate opportunities in their region. With Block Square's real estate tokenization protocol, entrepreneurs can start digitizing real estate assets cost-friendly, and a white label platform offers a quick way to launch an online marketplace. Denis, let's hear you out.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. I hope that you can hear me well. So,
yes.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming to this event. Now, have you ever asked yourselves why people today are increasingly moving to big cities? There must be a reason, right? Why we are building so much in concentrated metropolitan areas is because those areas are where money goes to, essentially. A study by JLL, in fact, points out every year for the past 15 years the same results. So when you look at global commercial real estate investments, we have something above 700 billion invested in 2019, for instance, and 80% of all that capital and all of those investments were made in just 60 cities worldwide. In just 60 cities. At the same time, we saw 10,000 new cities emerge in the past decade. Now, how does this reflect on our society? If we see the major banks, the major investors, the pension funds pouring into those so-called safe markets and neglecting the rest of the world, what happens to those local communities? How do they get access to good financing? How can they thrive in their local communities? This is, I think, something where tokenization can actually tap into and can directly link investors on a local area to reinvest into that community. and creating infrastructure projects, creating real estate assets that will attract new businesses to form there and to stay there, to get people to stay in those local communities and thrive and have a good quality of life instead of moving to London, for instance. Now, the main challenge, as we see it, and the main challenge we are set to solve through tokenization, and it's not just us, it's a new industry that is growing rapidly in the back, is that real estate is even though it's the biggest asset class in the world, it's actually one of the most illiquid asset classes. And that illiquidity itself is why the big investors are putting 80% into the 60 cities, 60 biggest metropolitan areas worldwide, because it's easy. Because it's easy for them to transact, because everybody's there, because there's no lack of potential new buyers, because it's easier if everybody lives in the same place and works in the same place. But how does that reflect if we look on the ecological side of the world, if we're all living in congested urban areas? Now, the other challenges with real estate investing is, besides the liquidity problem, is the access. It takes a lot of time, due diligence, it's capital intensive. There's valuation models that can be, in a way, manipulated, especially with unique assets where there's not many comparable data points around. And it's extremely regional as well. And what we see is that the tokenization of real estate, which is essentially creating a digital token that represents an economic right within a certain specific asset. And by doing so, we digitize the value, which means that we can now transact directly online. Today, the internet essentially is the internet of information. We're passing information through various interfaces from one party to the other. And based on that information, we then decide to make transactions. Now, with blockchain technology, this is changing. It's changing in a way where the information is passed in the same manner as before, but the actual transaction happens through smart contracts. Contracts that are essentially pre-coded programs that are planned to be executed exactly and only in that manner, which means they cut down counterparty risks in a trade. At the moment, the most things that are happening in DeFi are decentralized finance. But in time, we will see more and more blockchain use cases coming to the built environment as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Denis. Looking forward to catching up on some of your points that you just mentioned later in the Q&A session. For now, we will turn to our next speaker, Horatiu Florescu, who is Chairman and CEO of Knight Frank, Romania, Hungary, Bulgaria, Greece, and Serbia. Horatiu's catchy title for today is "Have Offices Become Obsolete After COVID?" I think all of us have an opinion on that. Horatiu has a wide range of property experience gained in his over 20 years career by advising the developers as well as multinational companies operating in the SCE region. He's particularly specialized in office agency, tenant and landlord representation services, and a keen believer in the power of the concrete gold. Prior to setting up the Romanian office of Knight Frank in 2009, the Hungarian one in 2018, and followed by Bulgaria, Greece, and Serbia in 2021, Horatiu was a vice president of Colliers International. Horatiu, the stage is yours.
Thank you. I had yesterday a very interesting, only to answer to a question directly, I had yesterday a very important, an interesting meeting with the global real estate manager one of the largest shared service center in the world. And we discussed about this one, they're coming back to the office or not. A very positive discussion saying that in 3 weeks we sent 15,000 people home in different geographies. Some of them, they didn't have the extra room to have a home office, but we succeeded. In our industry, it's working. I believe that tenants are coming back to the office. I believe that it's important to understand the geographies and the local habits. I believe that looking to the regions of the Southeastern European market, which for us we're considering being a big back office, the landlords, the developers, they are building, they are buying land. The tenants, they are signing pre-leases, means they would like to go back to the office, or they will go back to the office. We need to understand the industry, I believe. Somebody like real estate advisors like us, maybe your industry also. I believe that we need to come back to the office and to, in order to be sure that we are communicating, or otherwise we are meeting clients, we are going to the client's office. There are other industries where normally this can be done easily from home for now, like a shared service center or mainly IT. But talking with our clients, I can assure you that all of them, they are saying that in 2023, I believe that we'll come back to the office. We'll work a little bit different, but we'll come back. And I don't know big occupiers which they're thinking to give space back on the long term or not to grow. So the majority, I can say that in the regional, I'm talking about Belgrade here, Sofia, in Bucharest, Athens is a little bit different, Budapest. The majority, they are looking to have a more efficient layout in the next years, next 1 or 2 years. But after this, we would like to grow. So what's happening? What will be the difference? Well, we'll not see big surfaces of classy offices empty. I believe that good located office buildings, good technology, with a good technology, so in order to be safe coming to the office, all the time will be rented. And we are seeing potential to grow. That's why I started to saying that when discussing about the South and Eastern Europe, because I'm considering this area like a big back office of multinational from other parts of the world. If I can say, the local habits are that the occupiers normally are coming back to work in the office buildings. Did I answer to your question?
Thanks. I think that was very sharp to the point. Thanks, Horatiu. Good. Next in line, we have Theresa Rumpf, COO of Karl Ventures, bringing to our attention two very interesting questions. How can we bring more wood into the city by creating a hotel? Since 2019, Theresa has been COO of Karl Lodges and Karl Real Estate, which includes project leadership and management of the Wood Hotel Vienna. Between 2014 and 2019, she worked in project development and construction of real estate projects with a focus on tourism. Theresa holds a Master's of Arts degree from the University of Graz. Theresa, we're very happy to have you today.
Hello. Well, thanks, Andrea, and hello, everybody. Well, I was asked to talk to you today and contribute on the topic of trends in real estate industry, and especially so on wood used mainly as the main building material. So I guess that's a pretty pleasant topic for me to talk about, given that we have just finished the first hotel in Vienna that is built, or which rooms are built completely of solid wood, and where you can actually see all the wood that has been used. So the room you see as my virtual background is actually our standard room in the hotel. I guess it's impossible to fit into 5 minutes everything there is to say about our hotel and all its distinctions, but I thought you might be most interested in the challenges we faced during the whole process, as well as the advantages and disadvantages that come with it. So starting with the challenge, and as the title already says, creating a hotel in the city, I think one of the biggest challenges actually was the location of our hotel. And while I know that building in a densely populated city is always more challenging than building on an open site, we were not just in the middle of a city, but we were completely surrounded by other buildings. We had a 3-lane road right outside our hotel and hardly any place for storage. So this location also plays into fire safety regulations that are also already very strict for any type of construction, but even more so when you build with wood. And it took us a really long time to work through it with all the authorities. And I have to say, it also is a real cost factor in construction. But the location itself also played into the way our hotel was actually built. And what I mean by that is that we completely prefabricated all our hotel rooms in an assembly hall. And wood is actually just perfect for that because it's lightweight and it's easy to treat. So we did not just assemble the walls, the floors, and the ceilings together and do some of the installation work, but we completely furnished it the way you see it in this picture. So it already had the bed in it, the wardrobe, the tiles, the toilet, the bathroom, everything. We even put the facade on it, so we did not have any scaffolding work to do and saved on these costs as well. So it came out of the assembly hall the way you see it, except for these 2 days. But then where there are advantages, there are of course also downsides or limiting factors, I have to say, and of course they have to do with the prefabrication itself, which are, for example, the dimensions the rooms can have, because you also have to ship them to the construction sites. There are regulations when it comes to weight, because you have to lift them up on the hotel, and there is a lot of upfront planning, and that needs to be neat and on the spot, and is way more extensive than we would have thought. Yes, but I'm happy, we're really happy it actually worked the way we had planned it. And then with wood, we were actually pretty nervous about what soundproofing will be like, because there was no empirical data on whether it would really work in a hotel room, and that's what I'm personally most bothered with when I hear what all the guests are doing. So what we did is we also built 2 prototypes of our room and ran tests of how it worked, and we're really happy when we saw that our planning actually worked. Yeah, so thanks to prefabricating, we were actually able to build all our 50 hotel rooms in just 70 days, and we put them up in the hotel in just 6 nights. And there again, if we had built on an open site and not had to stick to 5 hours per night where we were able to put, I guess we could have been even a lot quicker and even save on time-related costs, because we would have built more hotel rooms at a time and also increased manforce to do so. And then we also started building right when COVID hit, and that really posed a lot of difficult situation for us, which I guess it did to all of you. But for us, it also meant that we saw hotel occupancy in Vienna come to below than 20%. And it was in that time we were always almost about to open our hotel when we got an offer from a German hotel group wanting to lease our hotel, but they had 2 prerequisites to it. So they said that every hotel room needs to have its own kitchenette, no matter the size of the room, and they need their own access system, allowing the guests to check in completely autonomously. So we were reluctant to do that because it did not go that well with the concept we originally had for the hotel, with not touching the room before they opened. But we eventually catered to their needs, and I think we were right to do so, because the hotel only opened in April this year, and hotel occupancy is already at 100%. It was in September on weekends, and 80 to 90% during weekdays. So really good. And from what I hear from the operators is also that the hotel guests really appreciate the atmosphere the wood provides in the middle of a bustling city, even so having the Maria Hilfergürtel right outside the hotel. And I guess we were also lucky that we started building before the wood prices went up that much. I mean, they have sort of recovered a bit, But then again, we were not that lucky when it came to receiving grants for building with wood that are out there now, such as the carbon dioxide bonus that you can get for building with wood now. But then again, I think we've had so many learnings from building this hotel, and we were able to increase our efficiency so much from building the first hotel room compared to the last hotel room, that this is definitely not going to be the last wood hotel that we are building, but it's probably going to be with easier prerequisites, just such as the building site itself, and also hopefully Corona restrictions being a thing of the past. So yeah, should you have more questions on that, I'm happy to answer them after the question.
Thank you, Theresa. And I have to say that the virtual background you're using looks very inviting. So thanks for enlightening us today in this respect. Our next speaker is Julia Wawrik, CEO of Püspök Immobilien App Services. Julia, you're bringing to the table a question on PropTech, namely how can an app simplify property management? Julia is a trained economist with more than 20 years of experience in the digital business and has held leading positions in different companies, such as the publishing house Steger Media Group, the online broker Brokerchat Bank, or various ORF enterprises. Her focus is on recognizing market opportunities and the targeted further development of business models. Since 2020, Julia has been the managing director of Püspök Immobilien App Services, ensuring more efficient communication between property management and residents with a focus on convenience, sustainability, and digitalization. Julia, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, and hello to everyone. So, why should an app simplify property management? Why is there a need to simplify the property management? The simple answer is that the property management, as it works today, faces many factors that doesn't make this business or industry very easy. So firstly, we face the lack of resources. Yes, this is a topic which nearly every industry faces, but my personal opinion is that in the property management business, this is a very, very crucial point. So we should always focus on the reduction of the efforts. Secondly, we have the problem with the very low margins. So in Vienna, we would say it's a Gröschal business, meaning that the margin is very, very low. So we have to focus on the effort to reduce the costs. Thirdly, there is the tenancy law. So I basically know the situation in Austria, but we have a law, it's called Mietrechtsgesetz, that says that only specific services may be charged to the residents. So we have to find solution where we could charge them to the residents. Fourthly, a very big point at the moment is that there are higher requirements on property managers. So meaning that all the different owners of buildings ask the property managers to provide more services at reduced costs, and they ask for a certain degree of digitization. Okay. And fifth point is how can we optimize the operational costs of the building. So we have the field of the reduction of costs, and we have to provide services and resources and smart building components to meet this point. So when we invented Püspök, we founded the ecosystem of Püspök. So when you think of Püspök, it's not only an app that simplifies the property management, but we have made a huge system containing of the app in the center of the system, but also of different smart building components. So it is very, very important to accept that the user, meaning the resident, has to be in the center of all of our activities. What we see with different market players, that they really strongly focus on the property managers, what can they do, which services or software solutions can they provide to make their businesses easier. But if the app, so the connection to the resident, is not used, you could have the best software and it would not make any sense and will not reduce your efforts on the other side. So we always focus on the residents. So this is the very big point, and I think the big asset of Püspök at the moment. And when we are thinking about new services, features, or whatever, we always ask us 3 questions, meaning if we meet only one of those 3 points, it could make sense that we do this. So the first point is there any reduction of the efforts for the property managers? The second point could be convenience for the residents. And the third point that could be met is, do we face an optimization of the operational costs of the building? So there is now this ecosystem of Püspök. Imagine you have the app in the center and there are smart building components, and our smart building components at the moment, and I stress the word at the moment because we are always looking for new components. So we have a Püspök board. It's a digital blackboard. It's an own developed monitor, not a typical industry monitor like LG or Samsung you could nearly always buy, everywhere buy. It's an own solution we made in cooperation with an Austrian startup, and it serves like a digital bulletin board. So the property manager sits in his office and he publishes different relevant informations on the digital screen in the building. The second smart building component is our Püspök box. It's a parcel station developed in cooperation with a German partner with Renz. So where each logistic service provider could place your e-commerce things into this station. And the good thing is also that you could, via the app, give someone like your mother-in-law a PIN code and could place their things in the station for her that she could pick up later. The third component of our ecosystem is Püspök Door. What is Püspök Door? Püspök Door is a video intercom. So when someone rings the bell in front of the building, there is a call on your smartphone and you could talk and see the person who wants to get into the building. What we are working at the moment for a pilot project in the first district of Vienna is a Püspök lock. It's an electronic locking system which is connected also to our booking function in the app. So meaning if you want to book, for example, a room in the building, you can not only book it, but you also get the ability to enter the room at the booked time. What we're focusing now very strong in development is Püspök sensor. Sustainability was mentioned, and the sensor technology will have a huge effect on this sustainability case. So with different sensors, you can measure conditions of the building. So you see, for example, really at each second, how much water the building needs, how much energy the building needs, and you also see instantly if there's any difference, if you see there's so much water that it's above average, so you can do and react very quick. So this is the overview about Püspök. Yes, and I'm looking forward to your question.
Thank you, Julia. That sounds very enticing. Thanks for that. Our next speaker for today is Lukas Püspök, CEO of Püspök Holding. Lukas, you are going to turn us green, namely into the green power area. Will we have sufficient power to charge our e-cars is the question you will be answering. Lukas is a graduate from Vienna University of Business Administration and Economics, starting out his professional career in management consulting. After leaving the business world for 1 year to ride a motorcycle from Nepal to Austria, he teamed up with his uncle to build one of Austria's leading wind power companies. He's a passionate fighter against climate change and tries to pass this on to his 4 boys. Lukas, very interested to hear your speech.
Well, thank you, Andrea, for the introduction, and I'm very happy to be here. The question that was raised by the hosts of the webinar was, will we have sufficient power to charge our e-cars? Well, that's an easy answer, and it is surprise. Yes, we will. When I was invited to give a short input into the series Future of Real Estate and Infrastructure, I was of course happy to join the invitation, but at the same time, I thought that talking about renewable energy would better fit into an edition of the series, maybe called The Future of Mankind or The Future of Humanity. Well, maybe that's partly because every speaker tends to see his or her own topic as the most important one. But it's also partly because the shift to renewable energy and green power is at the heart of fighting the biggest crisis we ever faced. And it's not COVID, it's the climate crisis. What's the role of renewable energy within that epic crisis? Well, it's easy to tell, and although I know the answer, I asked Google just this morning, and I typed in, what is the single biggest cause of climate change? And the answer I got was, and I'm like reading the sentence now, the answer was, the evidence is clear. The main cause of climate change is burning fossil fuels such as oil, gas, and coal. So why do we do that? Why do we burn so many things that are bad for the planet? Well, we do that because we need it. We need it for, on a worldwide scale, we need it for electricity. We need it for mobility, for heating. We need it for industry applications, just to name producing steel, for example, huge issue, just to name some. For the biggest part of these applications, interesting thing is we have great solutions, great renewable solutions already. And the really cool thing is they're already cheaper or about to be cheaper than the fossil fuel solutions. And that calculation doesn't even include the cost of climate change. So the big question is, what is holding renewable energy back? Well, nothing really. But it's a very different situation in every country, in every geography you look at. And there's different solutions for a too slow adoption in Russia than there are in South America. Or more locally, it's an interesting, if you look at, for example, renewable energy, especially wind power in Lower Austria and Upper Austria. Why has Lower Austria 1,700 megawatts of wind power installed, while Upper Austria, being only slightly smaller, has 47 megawatts of wind power installed? So what are the reasons? Well, let's start with the things that are actually not holding back, but are sometimes perceived by many of holding the adoption of renewable energy back. It's not cost. Wind power and solar PV are amongst the cheapest sources of electricity already almost anywhere in the world. About 10 or 15 years ago, people thought that solar would only be interesting in very countries with a lot of sun, and very southern countries mostly, and wind only at the coast. But because technology improved, this has really turned. It's also not a lack of money. There's investor money has been flooding into the space for years. There's abundance of money. And it's actually also not the people that they think that the people don't like it to have wind power or solar there. 70 to 80% actually say we need more of it. To my opinion, there's still, what's holding it back is still a very strong fossil fuel lobby. There's big companies around the globe who actually profit from the transition not being that fast. Already 10 years ago, I talked to a senior OMV official and asked them why they're not going into renewable energy, because it's the future. And what he said to privately, I hope I'm not being quoted here, he said that the yields are not good. And when they find the oil somewhere, they get a lot more money out of it than investing into wind power or solar. So basically, this is one reason. But the biggest thing is politics. And I think the example Upper and Lower Austria illustrates that if you have someone who really wants renewable energy adoption to be fast, then it works. And if you have politics that don't do it, then it's slow. And other things, of course, like NGOs fighting against projects that are good, but they think they're bad, and many other things. But just to name a few, I think politics is probably most important. And to come to an end, last but not least, two things to think about. There's the Austrian Parliament has recently passed a law that will enable Austrian electricity to be 100% clean by 2030. It's called the EAG, the Erneuerbare Ausbaugesetz, which is increasing renewable energy, and other things, other regulations on the EU level, like the Green Deal. That will change the energy sector fundamentally. And if you're in a business or if you're in a company deciding things, anything actually that has to do with energy and related things, then just, I think most of the people are not realizing how big that system change is and how many things will change, but also how many opportunities this change holds. So if you're sure, that's my advice, to adapt as quickly as possible and find the business potential that comes with that huge transformation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Lukas. And I already received many questions to your topic. Maybe I can just take one up right away, because you mentioned the European Green Deal. To what extent do you think this is gonna sort of entice change if politics are slow and each of us consumers can only do so little? How much impact will the Green Deal have on the question you just raised?
Well, the Green Deal is a huge deal, not because I know so much about all the different things it will get into and the regulations it will force in the different countries, but because the EU on the top level saying that this is the top priority and will do anything the next years to put renewable energy forward. This is what makes people think. This is what sets the pace, what sets the frame. And wherever politics acts this way, this is what investors need. They get trust, that investing in this area is good, that's gonna yield the money they'll get back from investments will be good, because this is like something we need to do. And on a small scale, we see that in Austria. For example, the small place like Burgenland, they, like 20 years ago, they said, yeah, we want to be in renewable energy, and it didn't really have to do much. Like everybody in there thought, okay, politics wants it, we're going to do it. So it's huge. It is a huge impact, I think.
Great, thank you so much, Lukas. Moving on to our last speaker of today, Christophe Marchiano, Project Director for Global Infrastructure at Google. Christophe, you will be looking at the data center industry, what makes a cloud sustainable. Christophe works in the global infrastructure team at Google, and before that, he held several positions as investment director and project director in the airport and energy industries. Looking forward to hearing you out today.
Thanks, Andrea. You can hear me well? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. So as Andrea said, I'm working in the infrastructure team at Google, more specifically involved in the development of a journey in the data center and focus on the energy side. I know we have only a few minutes, so it will be short. But maybe I will start with what it means for us to operate a clean cloud. And I think our first objective is really to use less energy. For that, we invest a lot in efficient design, and also to make sure that we make a good utilization I would say, of our facilities. We also try, to take advantage of AI, technologies to optimize operations. And by with this, strong focus on using less energy, we've been able, to have data centers that are twice as efficient as the average on the market. And also, what's really interesting is that the same amount of electricity globally to deliver 7 times the compute power. And so I think it shows, that first of all, the first objective should be, to use less energy. But of course, we still need to consume power. And I think we have, quite a long history already with trying to have a sustainable approach to our energy use. And actually, we define that as a sort of 3-decade history. It started in 2007, where we had this ambition, to be carbon neutral. And so since then, we purchased enough carbon offsets to make sure that we have a zero, emission total linked to operations. The second decade, which started in 2017, was to have a large-scale purchase of renewable energy and to make sure that we match all our electricity use consumption with the with equivalent quantities of wind and solar purchases. And so that really, worked very well. We achieved, significant amounts of electricity purchase, and these power purchase agreements of renewable energy, started to become a sort of standard for large consumers like us. However, our facilities, still rely on carbon-based power in some places and sometimes because our program was to and so now, our new ambition is that by 2030, we want really to be 24/7 carbon-free energy. And so what it means is that we want to match our operational electricity use with nearby carbon-free energy sources in every hour of every year. And so it's really about, purchasing electricity on the same grid where we consume power, which is really the biggest challenge, I think. And so what it means in practice is that you need to understand what is the existing carbon footprint of the grid where you operate your installations. You also need to understand what will be the future renewable penetration, and so for that we rely on some models to assess how and our intention is, after making this initial assessment, to select the best projects in the region where we operate our facility to make sure that we can increase this carbon-free share in our consumption of electricity. And so what's interesting is that we've done actually that already in Chile. And so we started with I think something like 60% of carbon-free energy in the grid. And what's interesting is that by adding some solar projects, some wind projects, we've been able to achieve 96% of carbon-free energy. And so what's really interesting is that with this approach,
I think there you are again, Chris. We just lost you for half a minute.
Sorry. So I don't know exactly where I stopped. I was talking about our Chile, example, where we've been able, to sort of achieve a 96% carbon-free energy purchase in the grid where we operate by adding proper selection of renewable energy projects. And what I was explaining is that with such an approach, what we make sure is that every hour of the year, in every place where we operate, we buy exactly the same quantity of renewable energy or carbon-free energy. And of course, we don't intend to do this only ourselves. For that, we are partnering with the grid operators, with project developers, with utilities, with also other large electricity purchasers. What we really want is to make this 24/7 carbon-free PPA the sort of new standard in the industry. What's really interesting is that it will encourage a full transformation of the electricity grid by doing so. And so I think that we announced a few weeks ago already some selected power purchase agreements in Germany that will enable us to reach a certain level of carbon-free energy for operations there. So the right projects, so that locally in each of the place where we operate, we can reach this 100% carbon-free energy target.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chris. And maybe just right on top of your speech, a follow-on question. If you look into your crystal ball, what other not yet commercialized sources of power do you see there? Eco-friendly, of course.
So, I mean, there are already a lot, of projects available. So I'm not sure, it's about the technologies. I think, what has been missing, and that's why, we initiated, this approach, is to find, utilities or partners, that could propose, this contract, of the year, you can propose to your client, this 100%, carbon-free contract. And so it's more in the project development side, in the contractual side, I think that there are some progress to be done. Of course, there's also new technologies like the batteries that can help to achieve this goal. And so ultimately, it's really about, I think, portfolio management, development of the right projects, maybe association of renewable energy, batteries, and I think the utilities and the grid operators have everything needed to be able, to make these new contracts a sort of standard. And by doing so, for sure, it will radically.
Right, thank you very much, Chris. And now looking towards the Q&A sessions that have been submitted, might I just stay in the environmental area and ask Theresa? A question to you has been posted, namely, having wood as a main building material seems environmentally friendly at first sight, but is it really? Thinking of all the harvesting methods, what is it really that makes wood all that sustainable?
Well, we got the figures from Theiss, which was a supplier for the CLT wood. And the amount of wood we used for our hotel was about 550 cubic meters. And that is the equivalent to about 6,000 trees. And this number of trees actually regrows in Austria. This amount of wood regrows in Austria alone in 8 minutes. So I think these numbers speak for themselves.
That's a clear answer, thanks. We have a second question to you, which says, you mentioned that guest value
Can you
especially...
hear me?
Yes, can you hear us too? Are you still there, Theresa? Hello? Can you hear us? Hello? Okay, maybe move to Julia for the time being. Julia, we had 2 questions to you. What is the user rate in the various PUC applications you described? What do people like most and what least, and why do you think that is so?
Okay, let's start. So we differentiate between the user rate where we only have the app in the building itself without any smart building component, and on the other hand, the buildings where we have some or all of these hardware components. What you might imagine is that the parcel station, so the so-called PUC box, is very, very of very, very high interest. So the amount of e-commerce is rising. Nearly every one of us orders goods in the internet, and this is a very there is a very high demand on this smart building component. On the other hand, we can say it differs from building to building if you look at the average age of the residents. So there are buildings, especially in Vienna, very old buildings where very often live old people or elderly people who maybe do not have a smartphone itself, or they're not used to the usage of smartphone and apps. So there is normally a lower rate of frequent usage. And in other buildings where we start to implement the app, not at the moment where people move into their apartments, but beforehand, meaning you buy an apartment, and at the moment where you sign the contract, you are provided with the PUC app. Why do we do that? Because we see in the building industry that there is also a big time frame between the signage of the contract and the exact time or date of where you can move into your apartment. So there's a long period, and normally you don't even get any information from the developer side. So what is the status of the building? Is there a possibility to contact the project manager for special needs for the apartment? So we use now the PUC app for this period of time where we provide the future residents with different kind of information, meaning from the project management point of view, but also useful information concerning the district where you will be living in. And there's a very, very high usage rate. If I talk in figures, you can say in a normal building, we have an average usage between 30 and 40% frequent usage. And in those buildings where we start earlier, we had nearly 80% of frequent users. So this is a big asset for the property managers, because if you look at the apps you have for property managers, they have all the problem, and I think each app business, how can you motivate people to download the app firstly, and then to frequently use it. If you only focus on property manager information, you will not be successful, because it's a topic people are not really interested in, it's not sexy and everything. But if we try to provide really useful information, convenient details, entertaining, and each of kind of things, we learned that this is a big plus concerning the usage.
Right. And what else might be added to the PUC service portfolio?
In the future, you mean?
Horizon? Yes.
The sustainability topic is in focus now. So we are, at the moment, we are talking to potential partners where we are focusing on the ESG topic. where people, building owners will be faced with different levels of energy usage in the houses and different charges. Yeah? And we are trying to give a quick monitoring tool or monitoring feature where those building owners or the property management which is in charge instantly realizes, is there an over average energy level at the moment? What is the average? Are the different apartments with different usage rates so that we can charge in the future beforehand a certain amount, on top amount for those people? So we are focusing now on this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for that. Looking now towards a couple of questions that go towards the financial area. First, Denis, DeFi and tokenization sounds convincing on paper, but when will we reach the sweet point, accumulating sufficient capital to see a real impact? Denis, are you there? Then maybe let's move to the next. Horatiu, do you see an upcoming real estate? I see Denis now.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No
I was
problem.
just wrapping up something in the meantime.
Don't worry.
Yes.
So DeFi and tokenization sounds convincing on paper, but when will you reach eventually when will we all reach the sweet point, accumulating sufficient capital to see a real impact?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. Well, I think it's obviously in the early stages. Even though if you look at the main driver of DeFi is essentially a stable cryptocurrency called DAI, and the system itself is more than 6 billion right now, which is small in economic terms if you look the financial sector worldwide, but it's still considerable amount. And I think this kind of changes as well how we perceive real world assets being tokenized and brought on chain, and the appetite for that real world value, I think it's there. Plus, it's really easy to use. So at the beginning, I think everybody was kind of skeptic of how hard it is, but it's much easier to create a wallet and use that wallet than open up a bank account. So I mean, it's much easier, and I think that barrier to entry is, with the new generations coming in, it's also an important factor. So yeah, I don't know if it directly answers the question, but
I think yeah, and in a nutshell, it's a matter of time only, so to say. Okay, Horatiu, there was a question to you, namely, do you see an upcoming real estate bubble and will it burst?
Yes, an actual question, and a good one also. I believe that we can wait. We can move to the bubbles. In terms of it will be a residential bubble or a commercial one. But to all of them, I can say that if the location of the asset and it's good, and I'm not talking about the old phrase, location. I'm talking that if you're buying residential and the residential is located in a good area, means in terms of the potential tenants or a business hub around, and the other one, I believe that we are on the safe side. If you are buying to a reasonable price or to a price, or we are buying off plan, means you can get definitely some percentage as from day one as saving, or as in that case can be a good investment. If you're buying at the end, the last apartments in a block of flats, definitely you'll buy expensive, and it's important after this coming back, as I said, where is located. So and this which is also is related also to the offices. An office building with a good infrastructure, and I'm talking about public transportation and all the time it will be let, against one which is like in public transportation. So the bubble, I believe, is coming only for bad assets, for bad investments. Talking about, as I said again, the Southeast European market and not worldwide. So it's important what you're investing, and I don't believe you'll enter in a bubble.
Thanks, Horatiu. Erik, next in line, a question to you. Who do you think will be the main investors for smart apartments and the roughly 90,000 serviced flats you predict for Austria alone until 2030?
Presently, the largest number of investors are private investors. Why is that? The most of these buildings, new buildings or refurbished buildings, are erected in municipalities of smaller size, so they do not attract the large investors, the funds, and so on and so forth, because they need a much huger investment portfolio, single investment that allows them to, have all the acquisition cost. Having said so, in particular in the larger cities, the towns wish to have some kind of commercial use next to apartment use of private flats. And at this time, they will allow an organized system, an operator of these apartments to fall under the concept of being commercial use. And if that happens, and if you have anything from 50 up, apartment size that is, it will attract institutional investors, even more so if you have professional operators. And we have, to my knowledge, 2 or 3 professional operators in Austria that look for exactly that. The newest one being the Embassy, which is a joint venture of Axel Springer and the Porsche private investment arm. And I'm pretty sure they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think it's a safe bet, Erik. Good. Last but not least, we have 2 more questions for the green area of things, so to say. First to Lukas and then to Chris. Lukas, how much potential do you see for photovoltaic to be installed on rooftops of commercial properties?
Well, in Austria, it's interesting. We're focusing on solar PV not on rooftops, but in bigger installations on the land. And but whenever we go somewhere, it's a prerequisite for the communities that they say before you go like somewhere outside the community, somewhere for 5, 10, 15, 50 megawatts, please make sure that all the buildings have, or most of the buildings have solar PV. And it turns out that we ask all the companies in the area, and it's only 20 to 30% who haven't thought about it or want to do it, and we're just going there and say, okay, we'll maybe do it for you. So the potential is quite big, I think, but many are waiting because they're expecting that they will change the roof or do something with the building, so they want to wait for a couple of years. And there's always many reasons why people don't do it, but whenever there's a lot of power needed, I think most of the companies have already thought about it or are going to implement it in the next years. It's so we see there's a big trend in that direction. I can't give you the numbers, but in Austria, it's expected that a little bit more than half of what we need in solar PV. That's about we're expecting to have 700 to 800 megawatts per year coming or adding to the installed capacity. And at least half of it is coming from buildings, or maybe more than half of it. And within that, half of it is coming from residential buildings and half of it is coming from commercial buildings.
That's an impressive figure. Thanks for that. Last question of today to Chris. Chris, are you there? Namely, is Google already producing green energy itself? And if not today, maybe tomorrow?
So we are not. I think, yeah, I mean, we have actually some on-site, solar panels, for instance. And so actually, yes, we are producing electricity, green energy, but, it's not our main ambition, to do that. When we can, optimize some site surface, we do it. If, for instance, part of our site, is not available for construction for data center, so it can make sense, to produce, on-site green energy. But really, when we are looking more to partner, with utilities, with project developers, and to find, some at-scale, projects that can, cover for our energy use, which is quite significant.
Thanks for that, Chris. Good. I think we had a great Q&A round. Thanks to all participants submitting the questions to our speakers. Now it's for me to say a big thank you to our host, Karl, to our speakers and all participants for sharing your know-how and contributing to the Theiss The Future of series. If you're hungry for more insight into what the future might look like, stay tuned and register for our next event on the future of mobility, taking place on 21st of October. Thank you very much for listening in, and goodbye.